let's talk a little bit about some specifics, because something both you, Abby, and Megan hit on was a lot of times it's just unknown. Like, what in the world does it even look like? So explain, in kind of real world terms, like, what does a fundraising process actually look like? What is someone actually signing on to do if they say yes?
Well, I would start with it's highly relational. It's placing a value on the connections and relationships that are a part of your life and that have been a part of your life through multiple stages of your life. And so to connect with those people and make an invitation to them to be a part of what God is now inviting you into is a really special thing. And so it starts with thinking through who are your networks of people that are a part of your life, being able to catch them up on what your college experience has been, what you are now being invited into and pursuing, to get to know how to share that story in a way that reflects well what the Lord has been doing in your life, and then communicates that in a way that's compelling to the people you know, and being able to arrange times to sit down and talk with them and share that vision, share your story, communicate to them the needs that you have, both prayerfully and financially, for the commitment you are making, whether it is 2 years or something longer or something shorter. And so to be able to make that ask to them to say, would you consider praying with me, joining me prayerfully? Would you consider joining me financially, and asking the Lord how He may desire for you to be involved in this opportunity? And then to follow up and to care well for the relationship by honoring that ask and honoring your friend to see how has the Lord prompted them and how would they desire to be involved in the work you're going to be doing.
Yeah, I think something that really changed like my perspective of support raising might have been something you said like when I first started with GoCorps. I don't even remember where I first heard it, but it's something that I talk about with all the candidates that I coach now. And it's this idea, kind of what Megan was hitting on, of partnership, and this idea that as we make the financial ask and as we invite people into this journey with us, we are also inviting them into the work the Lord is doing all across the world. And so we're actually inviting them to play a role in the work that the Lord is doing in whatever country you're serving in and whatever role you're doing. And that totally changed my perspective. Like, I'm not just making a financial ask, asking people to join me with money, but I'm actually giving them the opportunity to be a part of what the Lord is doing. Because for many reasons, maybe they can't be the goer. And so, I think about my grandparents. They're a little bit older, and they just, like, health-wise couldn't go right now. But by inviting them to be part of my team as I work and serve with GoCorps, man, now they get to be part of what the Lord is doing with all the students I coach. And that work and that ask is then multiplied. And so for me, it's this idea of partnership that feels very foundational. And then something I love about the GoCorps model is this word that I also like to share is just accountability. Like, you have so much accountability in the process. So many people coming alongside you, rallying around you. You're never walking through it alone. You don't have to figure things out alone. But man, the resources and the people and the coaches that you have, like, logistically coming alongside you to brainstorm and to think about what you're doing and maybe how it's not working, or man, what you're doing is working. It's doing so good. So that accountability, I just think, is so helpful in the process. So also thinking logistically, like, am I going to have help? Do I have to do this alone? No. Like, the point is that you have people rallying around you from day one of support raising. And then I think that shifts into having your team. So you're not going alone. You're support raising with a team, and then you're going with a team.
Something that I learned pretty early on, and it was kind of shocking, awesome, and terrifying at the same time, was I would schedule these like 30-minute meetings for my, partnership meeting, and they would turn into like 3-hour meetings. And I was like, wait, I can't just schedule 30 minutes for these meetings, because what I learned was people who love the Lord love to talk about the Lord. We just aren't very good at initiating those conversations in normal day-to-day life. And what I found that fundraising gave access to was conversations about what the Lord is doing and what we as His people desire for Him to do. Those conversations that we just don't normally have on a day-to-day basis. And so, practically for me, it was kind of shocking to see oh, people want to talk about these things. People want to talk about what God is doing around the world, what God is doing in your life and in my life. And making this ask to join and partner with me and really with what God is doing almost like reignited these old friendships that I had that, I had 5-10 years ago. And now we have a reason to talk about what God is doing and how both of us can be involved in what God is doing. It unleashed this whole new reality for, I think, what we're meant to be as believers, which we're talking about the Lord and what He's doing is supposed to be normal and natural, giving of our resources, being generous with a God who's been generous with us in grace. Like, that's supposed to be normal. And it unlocked this new part of me and who God had called me to be, and I think even them, that I think the church misses a lot of the time. So
I think it's important to remember, you don't have to do it alone. So GoCorps has a week of training that's literally designed to take someone who's done absolutely zero fundraising before. Within 1 week of in-person training, you'll go from never having fundraised before to really feeling confident. People leave our trainings every year saying they feel really confident. You actually come away with an 80-page manual. We even give you exact scripts. Put this in a text message. So we've been around for 15 years. We've sent over 300 goers. And we're so focused. The only people we send overseas is recent grads going overseas for 2 years. So we have a very targeted training that's really going to help give you what you need and very practical next steps. I know for me, I'm a numbers person. I have spreadsheets all the time. That just helps my brain think, when I can put something a little bit more concrete and less abstract. And fundraising can feel really abstract if you've never done it. So if numbers are really helpful for you, what we've really found is that it usually takes about 30 different people, 30 different individuals or churches who are saying yes to partnership and saying, yes, I can give a monthly amount. So that feels just so much more doable to me. You really want to just sit down and think do I know 30 people that I think would really at least be interested in hearing about what God is doing around the world through this team that I get to join and get to serve alongside with my skill sets for the next couple years. So, and what I really like about GoCorps is it's monthly partnerships. So when you think about what does it mean to raise money to do something for 2 years, you probably have this gigantic number in your mind. But the way GoCorps does it is by people who are committing to giving a monthly amount. So these are small amounts. The average gift that people are giving is $80 a month. So you just need 30 people giving an average of $80 a month. Some will give $10 a month. Some will give 20. Some might be able to give 100 or 200. But it will average out to about 30 people giving $80 a month. And that covers everything that you need for the 2 years. That covers all of your language learning, all of your housing, your groceries. It covers health insurance. It covers your student loan payments. It covers everything that you need to live and thrive overseas. And I feel like if someone would have just helped me know it takes 30 people in your life, then that probably would have given me a little bit less of that fear of the unknown. And that's something I would encourage you to do. If you're really really sitting there and thinking is this something that I think is doable for me? Then I would say take about 5 minutes and just pray. Just ask the Lord, kind of like what Megan said, ask the Lord, who are the people you've put around me? Who are people I grew up with? Who are my family members? Who are people in my church? Think about a hometown church or a college church. For you, you might have two, or that might be the same. Think about professors. Think about people that you've gone on short-term mission trips with or served in an internship with. And so pray, ask the Lord, bring to mind who you've really put around me. And then after you pray for 5 minutes, then sit down, put a little timer on your phone and give yourself 20 minutes. And within 20 minutes, write down as many names as you can. And if you can get to about 50 names, then honestly, you probably have what it takes to be able to raise the funds. It might be a little hard. You might think of 10 and then you have to stop, but if you keep going. So that's an exercise I might encourage you to do. And then once you kind of see those names and you've prayed over them and the Lord has brought those names to you, it can give you a little bit more peace when it feels a little bit, less unknown at that stage, when you have some more concrete things that you can really consider and bring to the Lord.
Yeah, Katie, so I think to your point, going back to the the idea of accountability in the support raising process. If you're like trying to make that list and you're like, oh, I have like 15 names, I don't know where to go from there. The beauty of working with GoCorps is that you get a coach, and our job as coaches are to walk alongside you in the entire journey. And part of that is getting on a Zoom call or a phone call and saying, okay, you're at 15 names, let's brainstorm together where we can get more names from, like who else in your life. And so that's just something for me that I found really helpful when I was support raising, because I remember sitting down and writing down names, and I don't remember how many I got to, but it wasn't enough, and it felt really overwhelming, like this isn't enough people, how am I going to do this? And I talked to my coach and another coworker, and we were able together to brainstorm, you know, what about this person and this person? And so if you're sitting there and you're looking at your list and you're feeling overwhelmed and you have a coach, like we want to work with you. It's probably one of us. And if you don't have a coach yet and maybe you're new to the process, again, that's our job within GoCorps, to come alongside you in this journey and to help you really figure out how to like uncover how you can support raise.
Another thing I'd also just add, like what exactly does fundraising look like, is what you're doing in the day-to-day. You know, what does it look like actually day-to-day while you're doing 3 months of fundraising before you go? And really what you're shooting for is to have different face-to-face meetings with people, whether that means you get to get coffee with them, you meet with them after church, or you meet with them on Zoom if they don't live near you. And you're really just sitting down and getting to just talk about your team. You're getting to talk about your story, why you feel like you are saying yes to kind of tithing your career and giving these first years after college to use your business degree or your nursing degree or your social work degree with a ministry overseas. And you just get to talk about that. It's actually, they were like way less scary than I thought. You're just getting to share about what God's doing in your life, and then you get to invite people to consider giving. It's not anything where we're coercing them. Like going back to earlier Ryan's point, it could feel like you're begging, but really the way that GoCorps model is and that we'll train you in is basically getting to just make people aware of the need and say, if this is something you feel like you want to get on board with and you have room in your budget, I would love to invite you to come alongside. If you don't have room in your budget to give, you can keep up with me through praying for me, and I'll share prayer requests. Or you might be able to connect me to others. Maybe you can introduce me to your small group, and someone in your small group would be able to give. So I actually found that when I was actually sitting down to do the real fundraising, it was just sending a quick text message, getting coffee with someone, sharing about the things I love, and then it was way less scary. And I was able to kind of be able to not as much feel like begging or all those fears that I had. It felt a lot more natural after I received the GoCorps training and after I was able to kind of like understand it from a biblical mindset.
I think a big shift for me when I thought about the practical day-to-day, because at first it was really hard to make a phone call. Like I would look at my list and I would just go, I have to call these people and like ask for money or whatever. And so but a shift happened for me just praying and talking to my coach. It's not thinking about it as I'm taking something from them, but I'm actually inviting them to do something with me. Like who doesn't like being invited to something? You know, like we actually are offended when we are left out. And so when I had that shift in my brain of, oh, I'm not taking something from them, I'm actually inviting them like into this with me. And then it actually became more exciting to me. Like I got more excited talking about it. I got more excited when I would look at my list instead of like, oh, this is a burden on my back. Like, no, like I actually don't want anybody to be left out of what God is doing. And if they say no, they say no. That's okay. Like that is absolutely okay. But for the people who said yes, they had so much joy when they partnered with me. And that was humbling and exciting.
I think similar to that, something that really helped me was thinking about it from the perspective of if I don't ask, I'm saying no for them. Yeah. And that leaves them out, but it eliminates an opportunity for them. And so to not say no for them, but to at least engage in the conversation and get to let them be the ones to ask the Lord and say yes or no based on their situation and how they're being led.
Well, I remember being at GoCorps training for fundraising, getting to that assignment of writing these lists of names, and I struggled to come up with 50 because I was saying no for people. I would think of someone, and then I would start thinking, well, I know this about them, I know that about them, so they're probably not a good person to ask. And so I remember hearing, though, at that training, like, we cannot say no for people. Like, you never know what work the Holy Spirit is doing in that person that might lead them to partner with you.
I remember this one lady at the church I was attending. I had been asking people in the church for meetings, and so, you know, that starts to spread. Oh, Colton's doing this. And this one lady came up to me and she said, hey, I heard you're doing this. You haven't asked me yet. And in my mind, I was thinking, you're like the poorest person I know. Like, of course I'm not going to ask you. And then she initiated the meeting for me, and then she ended up giving X amount of dollars out of what I knew that she didn't really have. And to this day, she's still on our support team. You just never know what God is doing in someone's heart. And like you said, if you don't ask, then you're saying no for them.